So, are you ready to dive deep into negotiation today?
Always ready.
Awesome, because we're going to be using that Getting to Yes excerpt that you sent over.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and I know you're already pretty familiar with negotiation basics,
Mhm.
so we're going to kind of like go beyond the typical stuff
Yeah.
and uncover some of the more like subtle techniques that can really like
Mm.
step up your game.
Yeah. I think what's so interesting about getting to yes
Yeah.
is that Uri and Fisher, they really flip the script. They
Yeah,
kind of reframe how we think about negotiation altogether.
totally.
It's not this battle that we have to win.
Right.
It's more like a puzzle
Uh,
that you're trying to solve together.
Yeah, and they illustrate this perfectly with that example of the two kids fighting over an orange.
Yeah.
One wants the peel for baking, the other one wants just the fruit. Like,
Ah.
how do you solve that?
Yeah. And if you just go for that easy 50-50 split,
Right.
cut it right down the middle,
Yeah.
both kids end up kind of
Yep.
dissatisfied. And that's what so often happens when we just fixate on positions.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I want this, you want that.
Right.
But we don't dig deeper into the underlying interests.
The why.
Yeah, it's like arguing about which way to steer the boat without even agreeing on where you're trying to go.
Oh, that's such a good analogy.
Thanks.
And speaking of destinations, getting to yes actually gives us a roadmap.
It does.
This 4-step framework that can guide us towards those win-win agreements.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued by that first step, focusing on interests, not positions.
And that's where that why question becomes so powerful.
Right.
So like imagine you're negotiating a raise. Instead of just saying, I want a 10% increase,
Okay.
really think about why is that number important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Is it about keeping up with the cost of living?
Yeah.
Is it about feeling valued for your contributions? Or maybe it's about taking on increased responsibilities.
Yeah.
Once you understand your own why, then you're so much better equipped to understand the other side's perspective.
Totally. And this reminds me of that story in the excerpt about the library window.
Oh, yeah.
Classic standoff, right?
Yeah.
One person wants it open, the other one wants it closed.
Right. And then the librarian comes in with this brilliant solution.
I know.
Open a window in a different room.
Totally.
Fresh air without the draft.
Problem solved.
And it all comes down to understanding those deeper interests. The need for fresh air versus the desire for a controlled environment.
It's like magic.
It is. And, speaking of finding those aha solutions, that's where that second step comes in.
Okay.
Using fair standards,
Yeah, that makes sense.
taking the emotion out of it
Uh-huh.
by relying on those objective criteria.
Right.
It's like if you're buying a used car,
Okay.
instead of just like haggling back and forth based on gut feelings,
Right.
you can look up the market value on Kelley Blue Book.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's not you against them.
Right.
It's about what's fair based on the data.
Yeah. You're both looking at the same information.
Exactly. It levels the playing field.
And it seems like using those fair standards would lead really well into the third step,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
inventing options for mutual gain.
That's where the creativity comes in.
Right. They
Yeah.
really emphasize brainstorming in the excerpt.
Absolutely. Thinking outside that box.
So it's not about compromise, it's about creating something new.
Yeah, it's recognizing that those differences,
Mm-hmm.
they're not roadblocks.
Okay.
They're actually like signposts pointing us towards those creative solutions.
I like that.
And, let's go back to our orange.
Okay.
Instead of cutting it in half, maybe one kid juices the orange,
Okay.
while the other one uses the peel for that cake.
Uh-huh.
So they both get what they need, and maybe they even discover a new way to enjoy oranges together.
I love that.
It's like turning that potential conflict into a culinary adventure.
It is. It's like collaboration and deliciousness all in one.
And that's the beauty of it. It's not a zero-sum game.
Right.
With a little ingenuity, we can find solutions where everyone benefits.
And that brings us to the final step in the framework.
The most important one.
Yeah, separating the people from the problem.
And I love that image they use in the excerpt.
Me too.
That line drawn down the person with the problem on one side
Uh-huh.
and the individual on the other.
It's so powerful.
It really highlights that human element.
Yeah.
Emotions can run high during a negotiation.
Oh, for sure.
It's easy to take things personally,
Yeah.
especially when you feel like your needs aren't being met.
Right.
But by consciously separating the person from the issue,
Mm-hmm.
you can maintain that more objective and collaborative approach.
So it's like saying, hey, we're on the same team here.
Exactly.
Let's tackle this challenge together.
Rather than viewing each other as adversaries.
I like that a lot.
Remember that library window scenario?
Yeah.
Those most elegant solutions, they often emerge when we step back. We understand each other's perspectives, and we approach that issue collaboratively.
Okay, so I think we've laid a really solid foundation here today.
I think so too.
We've unpacked those 4 crucial steps. But now I know you're probably thinking,
Uh-oh.
but what happens when the other side doesn't play fair?
Right. What about those curveballs?
Exactly. What about when things get heated or, there's like a power imbalance at play?
Those are the real tests.
And thankfully, getting to yes offers strategies for navigating those tricky situations too.
It does. It does. We'll have to save those for next time, though.
Okay, so stay tuned because in part 2, we're going to dive into those scenarios where things get a little bit messy.
Can't wait. Welcome back.
Okay, so we've laid that groundwork.
We have.
Those 4 steps from getting to yes.
Yeah.
But now we need to get into those real-world scenarios.
Right, because it's not always going to be that straightforward.
Exactly, like what happens when the other side they decide not to play by the rules.
Right, those tricky situations where it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah, and the excerpt calls them dirty tricks.
They do. And, we were talking about that good cop, bad cop tactic earlier.
Oh, yeah, classic.
It's so common. And, you get that one person who's like super aggressive.
Right, the bad cop.
Yeah, and then the other one swoops in all friendly like they're your best friend.
Right, trying to make you think that they're on your side.
Exactly. And it's designed to make you feel pressured.
Yeah, like you have to give in to the good cop.
Right, but here's the thing.
Okay.
Just naming the tactic can often completely neutralize it.
Really? So you just call them out on it?
Yeah. It's like you're saying, hey, I see what you're doing.
I'm not falling for it.
And it often just stops them right in their tracks.
Huh. So you can just say something like, it seems like you're playing good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd rather just have an open and direct conversation.
With both of you.
Together.
Yeah. And, you're not being accusatory. You're just acknowledging the tactic and redirecting the conversation.
Okay, that's good.
Keep things constructive.
But what about the situations where it feels like the power dynamic is totally off?
Oh, yeah, those can be tough.
Like imagine you're negotiating a job offer.
Okay.
With this huge company, and they've got a whole team of lawyers.
Right, HR professionals.
And you're just there on your own.
That can be intimidating.
Very intimidating.
That's when understanding your BATNA is so important.
BAT.
Your best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Right, so it's like your backup plan.
Your safety net.
Yeah, what you'll do if you don't reach a deal.
But it's more than that.
Okay.
A strong BTNA. It actually gives you power in the negotiation.
How so?
It allows you to walk away from a bad deal.
Okay.
Imagine you have multiple job offers on the table.
So you have options.
You're not desperate to accept just anything.
Right.
And that confidence, it changes everything.
Interesting.
You can set your minimum acceptable terms and stick to them.
You're not just reacting.
You're dictating the terms of engagement.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense.
So it's not just about having a backup plan.
Right.
It's about knowing your worth.
And being willing to walk away.
Exactly. And that shifts the power dynamic.
This actually reminds me of a time I was negotiating a freelance contract.
Okay.
And I had another project lined up, so I knew I could walk away if I needed to.
That's a perfect example.
I felt a lot more confident going into it.
Yeah, because you weren't desperate.
Exactly.
And they could probably sense that.
I think they could.
So we've talked about those tricky tactics and those power imbalances.
Right.
But what about those situations where it gets personal?
Ooh, yeah, those are the worst.
When emotions run high.
Right, people start saying things they don't mean.
And you just want to fire back.
It's so hard to stay calm.
But that's where negotiation jujitsu comes in.
Negotiation jujitsu. I like the sound of that.
It's not about fighting fire with fire.
Okay.
It's about redirecting that negative energy.
Oh, interesting.
Like turning your opponent's force against them.
I'm listening.
One technique is to ask questions instead of getting defensive.
Okay.
So let's say someone says, your proposal is completely unrealistic. Right? Instead of getting all defensive, you could say, help me understand what specifically concerns you about the proposal.
So you're making them explain themselves.
Exactly. You're inviting them to articulate their concerns.
Right.
Which can often de-escalate the situation.
Okay.
And you might actually uncover the real issue.
Interesting.
Another technique is to seek advice.
Oh, okay.
Especially when you're dealing with someone who thinks they have all the answers.
Right, like they're the expert.
You could say, I'm struggling to see how we can bridge the gap here. If you were in my shoes, what approach would you take?
So you're kind of appealing to their ego a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But you're also shifting the dynamic.
From confrontation to cooperation?
Yeah. You're inviting them to be part of the solution.
I like that.
And sometimes the most surprising tactic is to invite even more criticism.
Wait, really? Why would you do that?
It sounds counterintuitive, I know.
It does.
But if someone's being overly critical, instead of defending your ideas, you could say, "What's wrong with this proposal? Tell me everything you don't like about it."
Wow. That's bold.
It is, and it often catches them off guard,
I bet.
and it forces them to be more specific.
So you can actually address their concerns.
Right. You turn that potential attack into an opportunity for deeper understanding.
That's pretty clever.
It's all about negotiation jujitsu.
Okay, so we've got all these great techniques,
We do.
but it's hard to remember them all in the heat of the moment.
It is.
Yeah.
You know what can help?
That's that.
Connecting these concepts to a story.
A story.
Yeah, remember that anecdote from the excerpt?
Oh, which one?
The father and son playing frisbee in the park?
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
And that bystander asks, who's winning?
Right, and the father says that the question misses the point entirely.
Exactly, because it's not about winning or losing.
Right.
It's about the joy of playing together.
It's about the connection.
Yeah, and that's what negotiation should be like, too.
Not a battle.
Right? It's about finding solutions that benefit everyone,
Working together.
like a team.
I like that a lot. Okay, so we've explored those like hardcore negotiation scenarios.
We have.
But now I'm really curious about how these getting to yes principles can play out in our everyday lives.
Oh, absolutely. You know, this stuff is way more versatile.
Okay, good, because I'm thinking about those everyday conflicts
Right.
at work with family. Like, how does this all actually apply?
So let's say you're at work
Okay.
and you and a colleague have totally different ideas
Uh-oh.
about how to tackle a project.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Right. Instead of getting stuck in that tug of war.
My idea versus your idea.
Exactly. Try shifting to that focus on interests mode.
Okay.
Ask your colleague why.
Why they preferred their approach.
Yeah, really try to understand what's driving their preference.
So instead of arguing solutions, you're exploring those underlying motivations.
Exactly. You know, maybe their concern is the deadline.
Okay.
Or maybe it's about staying within budget.
Right. Or appealing to a specific audience.
Yeah, and once you understand their why,
Uh,
then you can start looking for those creative solutions
those win-win solutions.
that address both of your needs.
And it becomes like a team effort
Yeah, you're collaborating.
instead of competing,
And that shift is so important.
especially in our personal lives.
Oh, yeah. Family, relationships, roommates,
Those can get really tricky.
emotions run high.
For sure.
But instead of letting those, like, chores,
Oh, chores are the worst.
I know, right? But instead of letting those become a battleground,
Okay.
try approaching them with a getting to yes mindset.
Okay, so how would that work?
Have a conversation.
About the chores.
Yeah, talk about everyone's schedules,
Okay.
preferences.
Maybe even like strengths and weaknesses.
Totally. And brainstorm some creative solutions.
Solutions for chores.
Like a chore wheel, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Or assigning tasks based on who's good at what.
Right, so if someone hates dishes but loves vacuuming.
Exactly.
It's
Find a
very-
system that works
For everyone.
without anyone feeling like
Yeah.
they're losing.
That's the key.
And remember that idea of using fair standards.
Right.
That can be huge for everyday stuff, too.
So instead of just saying it's your turn,
Based on some random feeling.
right, we need some objective criteria.
Like a rotating schedule.
Okay.
Or a point system.
Maybe even like a chore app.
There are tons of them.
Yeah, you could even find like recommended chore allocations online.
Based on family size.
Age, things like that.
Exactly. It takes the emotion out of it.
It makes it feel more fair.
And, you know, on top of all of that,
Mm-hmm.
remember to separate the people from the problem.
Right, that's crucial.
Because even when we disagree,
Yeah,
we can still respect each other.
as humans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that means keeping the conversation
Okay,
focused on the issue itself.
not on attacking each other,
So instead of saying you're being lazy,
which I definitely have said before.
we all have, you could try saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed because the kitchen is always messy.
Or like, I'm worried we're not sharing the chores equally,
Exactly. You're focusing on the behavior.
not the person.
And it opens up a more constructive dialogue.
This has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad.
I feel like getting to yes has given us so many tools,
It has.
not just for like business deals,
You're right.
but for all those everyday conversations.
That's stuff that really matters.
Yeah, because whether it's a salary negotiation or figuring out who does the dishes,
Or resolving a conflict with a loved one.
we can all benefit from learning how to negotiate more effectively.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty of it
Yeah.
is that it's not just about getting what we want.
Okay.
It's about creating those win-win solutions.
Right, where everyone feels heard and respected.
And those solutions, they actually strengthen our
They
relationships.
do. They make life more harmonious.
And isn't that what we all want at the end of the day?
I think so. I think we've really unpacked a lot today.
We have.
And I hope our listeners feel equipped to tackle those tricky conversations
Me too.
with confidence and a getting to yes mindset.
Go forth and negotiate.
Happy negotiating, everyone.